The ANC cannot continue talking about radical socio-economic transformation while it's not happening on the ground. This is according to party NEC member David Mankura as he delivered commission resolutions on strategy and tactics. The governing party has had to consider many policy priorities aimed at promoting citizens' socio-economic well-being. Also topping the agenda is the energy crisis, which is harming the country's economic growth prospects.
The ANC has acknowledged that there are many people in South Africa who are restless with the lack of progress in the country. Whether it's poverty, unemployment, dysfunctional municipalities or the energy crisis, the impatience is real. And the party is seemingly eating humble pie, taking responsibility for its failures with a promise to do better going forward.
People who had access, who never had electricity, after 1994, in villages as far as Limpopo, my mother, when she first got access to electricity, she said it's Nelson Mandela who brought electricity to me. But if later they can't have access to electricity because Eskom is dysfunctional, they will be unforgiving to the ANC. We understand that. That's why we must fix the problems. Putting in place basic infrastructure, and later that infrastructure cannot be maintained. People have had access to certain things as a result of democracy, and later those things, not as a result of the apartheid state, as a result of democracy. When later we fail to get those things functioning, and their lives goes back, they have every right to blame us, and we accept the blame.
Much hope has been pinned on the promises proffered by the ANC over the past nearly 30 years. And while it would be wrong to suggest that there haven't been material improvements in the lives of the majority of South Africans over the years, the lack of delivery in many areas remains distinct and adversely impactful. And with so much political apathy among the South African electorate, political talk and promises are often construed as cheap. A big question mark hangs over whether the latest confirmed resolutions and policies of the ANC will be enough for the party to maintain or even make gains in its political dominance come 2024 and beyond. Nompumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Experts say that policy uncertainty in the energy space remains a major challenge in addressing rolling blackouts. The ANC has hosted an economic dialogue on economic reforms and energy security in Bloemfontein. Participants also indicated that existing policies need to be reviewed and changed to sustain and improve energy supplies.
The energy crisis remains the biggest threat to the country's economy. Calls have been made for an energy transition and finding a balance in terms of responding to the issue of climate change. Those who formed part of the discussion say the issue of infrastructure at power stations should be addressed and a new generation capacity should be prioritized.
The problem is a global problem. When we move more into high penetration of weather-dependent resources and reduce our rotating machines, some of the benefit of the rotating machines we're going to miss. So what is it in the future we're going to put in our system to compensate what we're going to miss with the rotating machines? So it must never be coal versus renewable.
The plan has always recognized that there is a lag in terms of power generation, that there is a time that is required to put in place new generation capacity. So in terms of closing the short-term gap, you obviously have to focus on what you have, which is basically the capacity that you have already connected on the system.
ANC Chairperson Gwede Mantashe is concerned about whether renewable energy could really solve the energy crisis. He says it's time the country thought broadly about energy security.
Is it an energy crisis? Is it a baseload crisis? Is it a peaking crisis? So we must resolve that. I think brains here are able to take us through all those. Number two, can renewables on their own resolve the load shedding crisis?
Small, medium and micro enterprises say they need to be on board with solving the energy crisis. The issue of high tariffs has also created an imbalance.
How do we start working with our society to see that we are not the enemies here, that we are actually working for a common goal? I think it's important to know that just transition is not only about the coal value chain, as most of our speakers have alluded today, because there is an agricultural sector and an auto industry which are heavily impacted.
The ANC's head of economic transformation, Mamuluko Kubai, has warned that contradictory messages on energy security can confuse residents and affect their confidence, especially when the party doesn't speak with one voice. Aphumelele Mdlalane, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
Professor Sampson Mamphweli is an energy expert from Stellenbosch University Centre for Renewable Sustainable Energy Studies, and he joins us now for a little bit more on what's coming out of the ANC conference around energy. Thank you so much. Always good to talk to you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Peter. I've moved on from Stellenbosch University. I'm now head of the Department of Science and Innovation's Energy Secretariat at SANEDI.
Ah, fantastic.
I started yesterday.
Congratulations on that. And we look forward to many more chats, particularly in your new role. Let's talk about energy policy. I wonder if policy has been the issue or just actually day-to-day running of the energy sector, because it seems to me lights go out because the car's not working, or a tower is not working. Not that the policy is problematic.
Yeah, on the policy side, the main thing is policy certainty, which the Minister Mamuloko Kubai talked about, and also the fact that we are now revising the integrated resource plan. So some people around, especially the international community, because the integrated resource plan was promulgated in 2019, some people around the world, they feel like we are creating some policy uncertainty, because we're supposed to stay maybe for about 5 years before the revision of the integrated resource plan. But some of us, as you know, I was part of this panel this morning. We indicated that the reason behind the revision of the integrated resource plan is not necessarily around policy uncertainty, but it's to ensure that it keeps up to speed with the changing energy landscape. So, for instance, the technology, the prices of the various technologies has gone down. In some cases, we may find that the prices have gone up. So the new model, the model that we run to update the integrated resource plan may give different results at this particular time, depending on the prices of the technologies. So that was the main issue around the policy uncertainty aspect. But in terms of the question that you've asked, yes, it's not policy at the moment that is at the center stage of the challenges that we're facing at Eskom. It's basically the breakdown of the coal fleet that takes away between 16,000 and 20,000 megawatts at any point in time. So that was also discussed, and there's an indication that that coal fleet needs to be sorted out, especially that part of the megawatts that it needs to be resolved and improve the energy availability factor to about 75%. And we had some discussions around that on how the energy availability factor can be improved. I still remember saying that we need to shut down some of these power stations that are giving problems and do renewal as opposed to maintenance. And most of the people who were in the audience basically agreed with me on that.
You understand renewables like no other person, and the president is talking about proceeding with caution. It's almost as if they want to put the brakes on this transition to renewables and greener energies, because we've got all this coal that's a resource to us, and that the talk now is, yes, we'll transition, but at a pace that suits us. What does that mean?
So what we have agreed in the dialogue was the fact that we need to rely on the country's energy plan. And the country's energy plan, as we speak, is the integrated resource plan. And the integrated resource plan recognizes various issues. It recognizes the fact that we need to have what we call the just energy transition, which also dominated part of the debate. It also looks at the least cost technologies, and it also looks at our climate commitments. So while we need to proceed with caution, and that's mainly on the side of impacting on the jobs side. And one of the things that we were proposing was that we need to look at the jobs from the entire value chain, as opposed to looking at the jobs at the power station only. We need to look at the jobs from the coal mining, coal transportation, all the way to the power stations themselves, and look at how we can safeguard those jobs as we proceed with the just energy transition and with the implementation of the integrated resource plan. So the one thing that we have agreed on is to firm up the country's position when it comes to what plan is it that we are implementing going forward, which is the integrated resource plan that is being revised at the moment. So once we agree as a country that we are implementing the integrated resource plan, we'll then have to move with speed and bring in new generation capacity as quickly as possible so that we don't face these kind of challenges in the near future.
I suppose the million-dollar question is, do we have time? I'm looking at KwaZulu-Natal now, and alert level 9 has been issued in terms of flooding. All of this, I think a lot of people are pointing to climate change contributing to these weather patterns. South Africa is the 13th largest contributor to greenhouse emissions in the world. 45% of that comes from power generation. So the question is, yes, just transition, yes, gradual movement to greener energies, but do we have time given the consequences of what we're doing now?
We don't necessarily have time, and this is a global problem. Globally, we don't have time to deal with climate change. We need to act now, or the worst will happen. And like you rightly said, KwaZulu-Natal was put at alert level 9 because of the floods. And one of the things that some of us indicated during the dialogue was the fact that when the effects of the negative effects of climate change and global warming affect mainly the poor. The rich people are affected to a lesser extent when you compare to the poor. For instance, most of our poor people build their settlements in flood lines or places that are easily flooded. And when these flash floods happen, depending on the time that they happen and whether those people are at home or not, sometimes people get washed away. It affects the food production. It affects the agricultural sector in general. So those are some of the issues that we were discussing. And basically, to answer your question, we don't have time, but as things stand, we are busy as a country reworking the integrated resource plan so that we can continue with bringing in new generation capacity. I must say, though, that since the revision of the integrated resource plan in 2019, Minister Mantashe has been implementing it very well. In terms of bringing in the various bid windows. The challenge has been that we are basically following behind the problem, because we should have brought in this new generation capacity long time ago, and also we should have renewed some of these coal power stations and bring in things such as your carbon capture technologies. At the Department of Science and Innovation, for instance, they have a program called the Coal CO2 to X program, which I'm also going to be responsible for through the SANEDI head of the SANEDI Energy Secretariat, which is where we capture these flue gases and then turn the flue gases into useful products such as your ammonia, fertilizers, and things like that. So all those efforts are going to have to come on board as quickly as possible.
I suppose big, brave decisions might need to be taken, such as should governments be owning electricity generation or not? We can learn lessons from other parts of the world, and I wonder what it means for a developing nation, whether this is a conversation we should be having, because it looks as if we don't always have the capacity to run things.
So if we look at the history of Eskom, Eskom at some point was one of the best power utilities in the world. And if you look at what happened at Eskom with the breakdowns that we're starting to have now, due to some of the decisions that were taken in the past, where some of the coal fleet was not properly managed and all that. One can easily say that it's possible for government to run electricity generation, but I'm more inclined towards electricity generation being done by private generators, IPPs, while Eskom could then concentrate on transmission and distribution. I'm more inclined towards that kind of a situation. But what encourages me, Peter, is the fact that the ANC, which is the ruling party, has started acknowledging the importance of engaging experts. If you look at the dialogue that we had today, which was organized by Minister Kubai, some of us were there as experts, and there were also other experts on the floor. And she has been saying, this is the way that we're going to do things going forward. And this is how President Ramaphosa himself has also been doing things on the background. So if we proceed in this route, this way, with external experts advising on some of these issues, we may still be able to run Eskom as a utility within either public enterprises or Department of Mineral Resources and Energy as per the new proposals by the ANC.
Professor Mamphweli, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining us, and good luck with this new job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, and that's where we leave that conversation. The ANC's wrapping up its national conference, which had been adjourned in December, and one of the key issues and debates was around energy and policy certainty, and getting a take there from the professor.